Nick Ferrari now. 0345 6060 973 LBC.
No one.
Or even plan B for that matter. Health Secretary with us in a minute or two. 10 minutes before 8 is the time. Talk about lorry drivers. Anthony's in Birmingham. You are one, are you, Anthony? Good morning.
Morning, Nick. Yeah, great show. Yeah, I'm a lorry driver. I've been a lorry driver for over 30 years.
Right.
And in my mind, there is no shortage of lorry drivers as such. What there is a shortage of drivers. And the reason that drivers are going, they're just going where the money is. And
Right.
because the employers are starting to recognise they've got to pay to get the drivers to stay. There's no loyalty from the employers as such, so that's why drivers are going. But people don't understand, or the employers do understand, but people don't, the hardships that we have out here just to survive for a week.
Well, tell my listeners what it's like, why it is such a tough job.
I'll tell you why it's such a tough job. I'll tell you my week starts at 3 o'clock in the morning on a Monday to get to work. Travel to work an hour and 20 minutes to get there, go national, and why it could be Scotland, it could be Cornwall, it could be Wales, it could be anywhere. And in the course of that journey, what you'll have to do is you can bring a certain amount of food with you, but to get any kind of decent food is almost impossible at a reasonable price. To park your truck overnight on any of the motorway services, plus £35 a night.
Now, I want to come back to you, Anthony. I'm sorry to interrupt and very rudely cut you off. Well, I haven't cut you off because you're now talking to one of my colleagues, but I want to hear, and my listeners will want to hear that, but I've had the benefit of putting some questions to the Health Secretary. So, Anthony, please hold on, sir, while one of my team talks to you. As I bring into the conversation to give us more details of what we heard yesterday, Health Secretary Sajid Javid joins me now. Thank you for coming on. There is a figure quoted because we don't actually know what the concern is, the number of hospital admissions. Is it 7,000 when we hit that number, Secretary of State, that we would have to start looking at further measures, I should say, further measures? Good morning.
Good morning. Look, what we set out yesterday in terms of measures is our plans for the autumn and winter, because we know as we enter into that part of the year, COVID likes it, other seasonal viruses like flu like it too. And so I wanted to set out our plans and reassure people that we've been thinking hard about protecting the gains that we've made against COVID over the last few months. So our first line of defense is vaccines, and they have been doing a tremendous job. That's complemented with amazing new treatments with our testing system, our global surveillance system. And I announced yesterday that we're going to do even more on vaccines to increase the uptake, but also to offer boosters from next week and the offer of vaccination to 12 and 15-year-olds. This will all work together to protect progress. Now, going to your specific question
a number,
about
yes,
hospitalizations,
thank you. Yep.
is that of course, we very carefully watch hospitalisation numbers, work with our friends in the NHS. We don't want to see a situation ever again where we have unsustainable pressure on the NHS. It's not going to be just about the hospitalisation numbers. I think what we will look at is, as well as that, our pressures on A&E in hospitals. We'll be looking at the impact on the workforce and taking all of that together.
I'm sorry to talk over you, but in a non-pandemic year, we will have known, not under your stewardship, but we hear that the NHS just about gets over the line on a non-pandemic year. In reality, we're going to see all those strains. So that's why I'm driving at a number. And is that being taken into account? Because you mentioned seasonal viruses. That's what I call the flu. That's coming around the corner, Secretary of State.
Yeah, you're right. Flu is coming around the corner. And that's why we've also announced yesterday the biggest flu vaccination program this country has ever seen, clearly in anticipation of that challenge. But also alongside this, for the best part of a year now, we've massively increased investment in the NHS. Just 2 weeks ago, I announced an additional £5.4 billion for the NHS just for the second half of this year to help it with capacity, to help it with workforce, to help it with new ways of getting through its electives backlog as well, with things like the surgery hub. So that investment, coupled with the vaccine program, extending that vaccine program, the amazing new treatments that we've got for COVID now, Nick, that we didn't even have 6 months or even a year ago, and the testing system that's all properly in place and working really well, and our surveillance program looking out for new variants. I think that's a fantastic set of defences. Okay, I'm not going to pretend for a second it will always be enough, so we have to always plan for things that could go wrong, and we set that out yesterday as well.
I'm going to try one last time, and I sense you don't want to give it. Is there a number of hospital admissions? Is it 2,000 a day, 4,000?
There's no specific number. As I said, there's a number of measures we need to look at, and hospitalisations is one of them.
Okay. Some of my listeners are saying, with the measures that you, the Prime Minister, and others announced yesterday, what was the point of getting doubly vaccinated? Why did we do all that if we're going effectively back to the future? We're going back to where we were.
Well, first of all, I can say the point of getting doubly vaccinated might be best demonstrated by something we heard from the ONS just, I think, 2 days ago. They said that if you look at all the deaths in this country from COVID for the first half of this year, 99% of those people that sadly died from COVID were unvaccinated. So that's the point of getting vaccinated. If you value your life and you value the people around you, get vaccinated. And there are still some 6 million adults in this country that haven't even had a single jab, and they really are not just hurting themselves, but they're hurting those around them. But that vaccination, coupled with the booster program that I announced, so from 30 million people over the age of 50, taken together with all the other measures, I think these are very strong defences as we enter autumn and winter.
Are we going to see vaccine passports to go to the pub, Secretary of State?
No, I don't believe we are, unless, and that's why I want to do caveat, I want to be straight with your listeners, as I always am, is that if something happens that means that we have to take further measures, then we will, and that may well include vaccine passports as a reserve measure. And let me explain. You might think, well, what could happen? What could really go wrong? I'll just give you one example, and there could be others. We have this surveillance system. We work with our friends across the world. We look out for new variants. There are new variants all the time, by the way, but most of them are nothing to worry about at all. But there may be a new variant that is much more infectious, and God forbid, it might even be a vaccine escape variant or have some of those properties. In that situation, we have to be ready to take further action. And we set that out yesterday, the so-called Plan B. And I think it's the act of a responsible government to recognise that when it comes to something like COVID, it's not your friend. It's clearly not always under your control. You can fight it, but you have to be ready, because if COVID changes with a new variant, for example, it's not going to wait for the government.
Okay. There is a suggestion that as part of Plan B, I remind my listeners, we're only at Plan A, but at part of Plan B, there could be the return of what's called the school bubble system. Is that true, Health Secretary?
No, I don't. I wouldn't call it that anymore, because I think that what's changed a lot
What would
is
you
that.
call it, sir?
No, but the school bubble system has been scrapped. So
it will not return.
There's no plans to bring back any kind of school bubble system or anything of that type. So we didn't set that out. I didn't set that out yesterday as part of our main defences of the so-called Plan B. But when it comes to school education, I think what's changed a lot is that we have a much better testing system in place today in schools, and that's really become the workhorse. And I think also it's important now that the chief medical officers of the UK have recommended that a vaccine offer be made to 12 to 15-year-olds. I mean, they were very clear in their advice that this is also something that can help protect children in educational settings from having that disrupted by COVID.
Secretary, say working from home, that could be part of Plan B if required?
It could be. We were clear about that yesterday. It's great to see people going back to work.
What percentage of staff in your department are currently behind their desks?
In my department, it's particularly a very low percentage, and the reason is
would it be
that
lower than
we don't have.
Would it be about 1 in 4? Would that sound about right?
It's about, I think, actually, it's probably not far off. I was going to say it's 3 in 10, but I think that is roughly there. But the reason is that we don't have, in my particular department, since you asked me about it, we don't have enough desks for people. The department, the number of people in the department, I think, understandably expanded quite a bit over COVID, and that's right. We have a lot of new experts in the department, and we just don't have enough desks for them. So even right now, if I said to all of them, "Can you all come into the office?" I think we'd have a real problem. We just don't have the desks.
So you'll never have your full complement of staff in this new hybrid world. You'll never have them all there.
Not if I stay in this current office, and I don't think frankly, I need them all there all the time, because a lot of them they will work in different parts of the country.
Secretary said they can work from home, but you're demanding doctors go back to their places of work. Why?
No, we're not demanding that at all. What we're saying is, when it comes to working practices,
so doctors don't need to go back to their practice.
No, there's no government requirement anymore, as we saw at the height of the pandemic, for anyone to work away from home. Now, in terms of what actually happens next, it's a relationship between that employer and employee. There may well be, by the way, some employers out there that they found during COVID that actually they prefer to give the flexibility to their employees. So that's a decision for the businesses themselves.
I'm reading a comment. You said life is starting to return almost back to completely normal. As that is happening, it should be happening in our GP surgeries too. So you want doctors to go back to their surgeries, but your staff can stay at home.
What I'm referring to there with that particular quote is I want to see more doctors giving the offer of a face-to-face surgery consultation. And at the height of the pandemic, it was understandable that doctors weren't able to do that. So the offer was really around telephone consultations or other types of digital consultation, and that was understandable. But now, as we return to normal, people should have the option of seeing their GP
just the option,
face to face, if that's what they want. Because right. I've also heard from many people that actually, having tried digital consultation, they actually prefer it. In many cases, they prefer it, and if that's what their preference is, then that's fine. But what I don't like to see is where there are many people approaching me either directly or indirectly, right. and setting out their desire, particularly older people. They want to see their GP, they want to see them face to face, and that should be their right. It should be an offer that's available to them.
And you're happy with 30% staff behind their desks in your department?
As I say, in my department, it's for a different reason. It's not to do with COVID. I'd like to see it higher than that, but I don't need to have desks for 100% of the people in my department.
A couple of other questions while I've got the benefit on the line. The jobs figures were very strong yesterday, so congratulations to your colleagues on that side. But as a former Chancellor, are you concerned that London is lagging behind other regions? What's happening in the capital city?
I'm really pleased to see growth coming back throughout the UK. That does include the capital city. We're seeing throughout the... Well, we are seeing jobs coming back.
But they're not at the same level elsewhere in the country. Does London need some kind of a boost or some kind of extra package, former Chancellor, Health Secretary?
I think London is a magnet already for businesses, and I think as we now have come out of many of the COVID restrictions, and as we are people are coming back from holiday and we're opening up our borders, I think we are going to see London continue to remain very strong.
Lastly, you also served as Home Secretary, and you'll be aware that current Home Secretary Priti Patel decided not to attend a meeting with senior police officers and sent a video message instead. This is reportedly over a row over police pay and pensions. Would you have dodged the cops, Secretary of State?
No, I don't know I don't know about the incident you're referring to in any of the detail.
It's the Police Superintendents Association.
What I do know, my replacement as Home Secretary is doing a fantastic job, and it's a tough job.
It is.
It's whether it's related to policing or fighting terrorism or half the stuff we don't even hear about what a Home Secretary has to do, and I think she's doing a fantastic job.
Shouldn't you have been there in person? You wouldn't have dodged the cops.
I'm not. It's not right for me to talk about some particular incident that you've just picked out to try and trap me, Nick.
How dare! As if I try and trap someone of your political skill and wisdom.
The little incidents that you find, as one of your researchers hands over to you.
No, it's all left to me.
Asking about this.
Actually,
it probably is. Have you had cutbacks there or something?
Have I had cutbacks? No. We run lean and mean, Secretary of State. That's how we operate.
Well, that's good. You make sure.
We are not in the public sector.
They're looking after you.
Yeah,
you make sure they're looking after you.
And absolutely, and all my staff are behind their desks. I always enjoy our exchanges. Thank you indeed.
You've got a lot of desks then.
No, we're running lean and mean. It's about 3.5, and we hot desk them. Thank you for your time. Health Secretary Sajid Javid appearing here on LBC, where at 4 minutes after 8, news is next.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom, the Health Secretary Sajid Javid has told LBC that coronavirus vaccines remain the first line of defence